When they start calling, would it show there when they? Yeah. Can you cancel anybody? Check. Huh? Can you cancel anybody if you don't want them? Hey, Leona. Okay. Hey guys, just checking in on the. It's happening. Stop you too. Ready? It's off. So, you can hear. Okay.
Eric, how are you?
Quite well, Shaun. How are you doing?
Long time no see.
That is a true statement.
Did you really say over 80 different meals last night that you know?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yes. Some good go-to ones also. Because we're always on the go, so you have to have your fast meals to go to.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a copy of my book, Healthy at Last. How are your children adjusting to your run?
To be honest, it was a big thing for me and my wife that they be out of the house. And so our younger one is a freshman in college this year.
Okay, where's he going?
He actually took a year off and he's playing music, but he's at least out of the house. So my older one is a senior in college. He was overseas last year, had to come home, lost that whole experience. He's captain of the soccer team at school, lost the whole season. So, in the scope of things, it's sort of small losses, but for a 21-year-old feels
major,
big, right?
Major,
right. So, but they're excited about it. My wife had more concerns, to be honest, than they did. So.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. How's it going?
Long time no see.
Hi, Maya. Hi, Eric.
Hey, sister, how you doing?
How y'all doing?
Good. One day at a time.
It's great to
One
see
day,
you.
one day, one night.
Day
Last
one.
night was a long night, y'all. Last night was a long night.
Yes, it was. Yes, it
Yes,
was.
it was.
Brutal, brutal.
Just want everybody to know that it is live on YouTube right now, so
Okay.
that we can be mindful of our conversations.
Yes, we will, but we always say kind things anyway.
I know you do. That's what I love about New Yorkers.
Well, I will then, as a matter of public record.
And I'm gonna eat for.
You are gonna eat. Go eat, Carlos. And I am gonna.
Is that an
give
Eric recipe?
I'm gonna give Eric credit though for
No, it's
making
just
me
that.
lay off the Girl Scout cookies.
I'll take them.
You're gonna have to fight my kids for them. You can come try to wrestle them out of their fingers.
Oh, man.
So if I make this the microphone.
I think my wife loves chia seeds almost as much as you, Eric.
Love it.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
How are you?
Good. Been a
Yeah,
long
just
time.
give us a couple minutes to get some of the technical together and we should be good.
All right, I'm unfortunately having trouble with my internet connection. Ah. Let's see what happens.
There should be some out of here. And yeah. That's good. But this is supposed to be a speakerphone. So they can hear it. Sometimes you look, it takes over. I think they listen to yeah, they listen themselves. They have the voice themselves. I'm seeing our mic is on. I'm seeing us moving. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah.
To the fact that this was supposed to be an in-person event, we're still working out a little bit of the technical difficulties with sound. We want to make sure that each candidate can be heard to all the residents and presidents that came out to the event today. So
We completely understand.
I'm glad to see we have at least one other cat person in the field.
Yeah, this is the one who likes to show up, though.
There too? Wow. We have two sisters.
There were 4, but my daughter disappeared with one, took our baby. We're that house where all the stray cats say need a place to stay. Their little paw prints. Their way to our.
I was in Staten Island the other day, and there was like a cat shelter on someone's porch.
Oh, yeah.
And literally there were at least a dozen cats that I could see roaming the neighborhood, living in this. It looked like a cat barn, basically.
Yeah. We actually got one of those little single ones once for a homeless cat that showed up, and it was winter, and we literally went out and bought one of these winterized like cat homes, because and then the cat spent not one day in it.
Picky.
Yeah, the cat was like, yeah, I'm not going in there.
Well, Maya, we need to reimagine the right to cat shelter as a right to cat housing. You know, that's the problem.
It's going in my zoning plan, my ULURP.
Okay.
It's so good to see that, everybody gets along so well. It's a pleasure.
Well, we keep laughing that we spend more time with each other than our families these days. So
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I'm going to be seeing a lot more of you guys. So
Hey,
just remember me.
we'll remember you.
You doing okay?
I'm doing okay. It's a lot going on, with transit workers, but
Yeah.
we're hanging in there.
Yeah.
So did people decide to actually show up in person anyway? Is that what's happening right now?
Yes. So the residents, yeah, they still came, and the youth leaders, yeah. You know what? We all know what's happening with Nycha, and once the word got out, like people just really wanted to participate.
Of course.
That's it, yeah.
They
Yeah.
want voices to be heard, and they wanted to have, an audience with you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what
And
you
I
do
know
is
we
gonna
all want that too. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yes, and it's important.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to make sure, can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me, because we're going to be operating through the computer speaker. Hold on, let me turn the microphone on. Hold on. I need yes. Also. Sorry. I do apologize. All right. I tell you can hear me. Hey, Dianne Morales. Are you able to hear me?
I can
Okay,
hear
I just
you.
want to make sure. All right.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah.
Shaun Donovan, this is Rock Logic. How are you?
It's good to see you. I can hear you just fine.
All right, great. I just want to make sure. Okay, we're looking good. We're looking good. All right. Okay. All right. Yes, I'm the guy on the microphone. All right. Okay.
This is incredible what's being set up right now.
At the last minute too.
Yeah, the technology tech setup is pretty advanced right now.
Well, this is union settlement too, so I would hope that they have a little bit better
Yeah.
Right.
And I hope everyone feels safe as well.
Yeah, that's the good
One of the great forgotten resources of the city by too many, those settlement houses. Amazing.
Right here. All right. Here we go. Candidates, thank you for being here. Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for being here.
On mute. I've seen a lot of the forums that you guys participated in, so it's a lot. Yeah.
Are you ready to recite everything we say now too?
Almost, not quite. No.
You need one or two more.
No, I mean, you all have done well, and, and I think it's important that we keep having these forums because there's a lot of people in New York City and we're going through a lot, and the message has to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. And all of you, of course, want to get your plans and proposals for the city across. So it's important to have these forums.
Absolutely. And actually it's, been a privilege, to be honest. And several of them do have, like Staten Island last night was Staten Island specific, or Muslim Democratic Club, that's where there are additional questions, which is good.
Yes, I just calls and people are trying to get on. So I said, listen, just, they're trying to work some stuff out, but it'll come.
Okay.
But I'll be calling you more often because I've been asked to do a couple of more, just help a lot of other groups. And then of course my place of employment will do theirs at some point.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so we're about to start.
Okay.
Everybody, you guys all heard me online? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, all right. Let's do it. Before we begin, we can start telling our leaders and we'll open up with prayer. This prayer will be now. I want us to clear our hearts and our mind. And what able to be here today because of the current climate, this pandemic that we find ourselves in. I want us to reflect on the TA president that not even drunk because they have transitioned. I want to mention John Johnson, Michael Stitt, Roxanne Reed, Ms. Kitchen, and others of the New York City Public Housing Authority that volunteer, strive each and every day to bring some form of compassion to our development. Let's reflect on those who still serve, despite the challenges, despite the lack of resources. Ms. David, who stands before us each and every day to give us a glimpse of hope. We all know that the Lord will deliver. I'm a we know the struggle. There's no water, there's no heat. When the cities collapse, we don't even have a kitchen sink to be able to item and wash our mouths. We all been this What is it? And our time is long overdue. So let's pay attention to our hearts and minds and reflect on those people who are not able to be here today. I ask for just a minute of silence. We pray for those who have been lost along the way. And we pray that one day we may rejoin them in your heavenly gates. Almighty Father, have mercy, have mercy. In your almighty name, amen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Claudia Perez, and I am the resident council president of Washington Housing. And it was with me and a bunch of other community activists. We have community leaders here. And I just want to thank you for coming out and coming in person. You know, we went through a lot because we really know that this is important, and we need the people who are running for mayor, we need y'all to understand that we ourselves are out here. We're the ones in the streets. We're the ones that are taking care of the families inside of the Nycha developments. So when we put out a call, even though we're not recognized as elected officials, we are elected officials that are bonded by federal legislation. So I just want to thank those of you who took the time out to appreciate and to take the time out to talk to everybody in this room and all of Nycha. We made it specifically so that we had representation from every borough, because Nycha is citywide. This is a citywide position that each and every candidate is running for. So I just want to say, we are here to have a conversation, a real conversation about the real issues, and we made sure that it was specifically to Nycha, because for far too long, we have been lumped in, we have been the least represented, and we always receiving the short end of the stick. So that's why this presentation was put together. And my presidents here, I want you to know that this is your voice, this is your time. This is when you're gonna ask the questions that you know need answers. And we wanted to make sure that these individuals who are running for mayor, we wanted to make sure that they were in person. But unfortunately, that could not happen, because we know when you look into a person's eyes, it's totally different, and we understand the times that are going on. But in this facility, we made sure we went through a lot to make sure everybody is safe. So this is your time. This is your opportunity. This is your chance. And we're gonna start it off with our youth today, because we had to revise a lot, but we are definitely gonna start it off with our youth today. So I wanna call up my two youth members from out of the audience.
Give yourself a round of applause.
From our Girl Scout troop, and they're gonna introduce themselves. Now, before we start these line of questions, I just want each candidate to know, we're gonna give each person one question to ask you guys, and we're gonna give each of you ample amount of time, which is 2 minutes, to answer that question to the best of your ability to the person that is asking that. When your 2 minutes is up, I'm hoping you can see this table behind me,
and you will see a red card, meaning that your time is up. I'm asking that every candidate please be respectful of the time, because we do have lots of individuals here who came out in person, and I want to make sure that they are able to ask the question of you guys that they can. So again, thank you guys for coming out, and welcome to the Nycha Forum in East Harlem.
Hi, my name is Nahabi, and my question is, why should, well, I personally can't vote for you, but I can encourage my mom and of course others. But my question is, why should they? What makes you stand out from the other candidates? And how would you benefit my future as a New York City student?
Were you guys able to hear that question?
We're gonna start with our person who is in person, Ms. Joycelyn Taylor, because she is here. Thank you.
Thank you. And first and foremost, I want to just thank the East Harlem Democratic Club and 700 Strong Voices, as well as, should I take my mask off?
No, but looks like that.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. I just want to thank East Harlem Democratic Club, 700 Strong Voices, and One Nycha for putting together this very important forum. You asked an excellent question. Why should you support me as a candidate? You know, I grew up in Nycha myself. So this issue as it relates to Nycha is very important to me. And I myself am tired of seeing over and over again the issues that have happened in Nycha and seeing the disinvestment. I've spent more years of my life outside of Nycha than living in Nycha than living anywhere else in the city. And if you are looking for a candidate who's going to be committed to creating change, reinvesting in Nycha, ensuring that the facilities are maintained and kept up to par, then I'm going to be that candidate. We can't keep electing the same people and expecting different results. And my level of commitment is shown to you tonight by me actually physically being here to talk to you.
Mr. Shaun Donovan, you're next.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sound great.
Wonderful. And it's an honor and a privilege to be with you all tonight. And thank you for the question. What makes me a unique candidate for mayor is that I'm the only one who combines deep, deep experience in moments of crisis like we're facing today with the big, bold ideas for how to truly fix public housing in this city and so many others, with the ability to actually make that change real. I spent 8 years working in President Obama's cabinet to bring real change. I can bring real change to New York City. The challenges around Nycha are ones I know better than anyone else in this race. 25 years ago, I went to work with Bishop Johnny Ray Youngblood in East New York and Brownsville, with East Brooklyn congregations, with South Bronx churches and others around the city, not just to improve conditions in public housing, but also to find a path toward home ownership. I helped finance the more than 5,000 Nehemiah homes that were built across Brooklyn and the Bronx. And that was a pathway. 90% of the folks who bought those homes moved straight out of public housing and began to build real wealth. That's why I have a comprehensive plan to fix Nycha. I would dedicate $2 billion a year of city capital, more than any other candidate, to fix Nycha. But I also am the only candidate who really understands how we're going to get the $40 billion we need from Washington, D.C. to fix Nycha and build the housing that every one of you deserves. You asked about what a student should care about in this race, what you should care about that might make a difference in your life. Well, let me tell you about my equity bonds proposal. I'm proposing that every child born in this city should get $1,000 put in an account, building on Senator Cory Booker's baby bonds idea. And every year, up to $2,000 would be added to that account, so that a child born into poverty in this city would graduate high school with almost $50,000 in an account to go to school, to start a business, to buy a home. And what does that mean? That we could finally end the racial wealth gap in this city, where the average white family has 10 times the wealth of the average Black family. That is just one of my campaign of ideas, and I look forward to talking to you more about them tonight. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Here we have Ms. Dianne Morales. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
You got it. It's Morales. Yes, thank you. Thanks so much. So I really, really appreciate this question. Let me tell you a little bit about me and who I am. I'm a first generation Black Boricua. I was born and raised in Bed-Stuy to a working class family. I'm also a single mother, and I raised my children in this same community, while I've also been spending my career serving other people in low-income Black and brown communities. I grew up hearing stories from my parents, both who lived in Nycha, in the early days when getting an apartment at Nycha was a source of pride and hope for folks in the community. And so I totally understand what is possible. But let me tell you about what, specific to you, what it is I think I can do for you as mayor, as a young person, and as the future of our city. I have spent my career actually working with young people and creating opportunities for young people. I co-founded a national organization that builds early literacy skills in preschool students. And in doing that, we provide training for college students to enter the teacher pipeline, to become teachers and pursue careers as teachers. I developed an education program here in New York City that was replicated by every single after-school program that is operated by the city. And that program was replicated because it was shown to make a positive impact on students' academic performance in schools. And I've created a career training program in healthcare for young adults to be able to access career pathways in the healthcare field, to be able to access higher education and college, and to be able to make informed decisions about their future. All of this work has given me direct experience with a lot of the failed systems that do not serve our communities. But it's also given me exposure to the hope and the possibility of our communities. And it's because of that combination of things that I am in this race. We have seen over the last year the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on so many of our community members and family members, and the pre-existing pandemics of racism and poverty. I don't think the problem is money in our city. I think the problem is that our city has continuously failed to provide and prioritize our communities. Our next mayor has to have a clear vision and defend and protect the human rights of Black and brown communities, of our immigrants, of our working class. Every New Yorker has to be made to feel valuable. My career has centered on helping communities access this so-called democracy that has left us behind for too long. New York City needs leadership that's unapologetic about us creating a new social contract moving forward. I am that leadership, and I'm not afraid to challenge the status quo, and I will do it for you as the future of our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Next for the same question, we will have Mr. Eric Adams, please.
Thank you so much. And I want to really thank 700 Strong, all of the organizers and attendant leaders that are here. And you are dead on when you look at the systemic problems in Nycha. I remember my closest friend who lived in 40 projects in South Jamaica, Queens, in Nycha housing. and used to go to his bedroom there, and you have to lean hard on the door and jiggle the knob to get inside his bedroom. I went to see him earlier this year because his mom is still there. You know what I had to do when we went into the room and she asked to get something? I had to lean on the door, jiggle the knob. That's over 40 something years ago. That door was not fixed. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So merely allocating money into Nycha just to watch them waste that money is not going to do you any good at all. We need a real-time system of monitoring the dollars that go into Nycha and ensure that we can see exactly how they are spent, how the tenants are receiving the services they deserve. And we need to fight like hell for federal government to give you the funding that they've denied for years. But as my mother said, boy, you better have a plan B also. And that plan B on my account is looking at the air rights over Nycha. You have $8 billion in air rights that could be sold throughout this entire community and neighborhoods where Nycha is located to immediately infuse dollars to do the repairs while we're fighting Albany. What you hear every day, I say over and over again, that bugle that's playing, that is not the cavalry, that's taps. Nycha is dying, and we better do a job now to ensure that it does not die. So young babies like you will have a future to grow up where you're respected with the dignity and respect that you deserve. And that's what I'm going to do as the mayor. I wore a bulletproof vest for 22 years as the founder of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, protecting babies like you. And I'm going to protect you as the mayor of the city of New York as well.
Thank you so much. Next, we are going to talk to Mrs. Wiley, please.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. And I commit to you that I'm going to come visit you in person. But let me just say, I'm running to be the next mayor of New York City as the little girl who went to a segregated, overcrowded, underfunded Black elementary school and who watched my friend Charlene disappear because when the rent went up, her mama, even though she worked long hours at the grocery store down the block, couldn't pay it. And I watched all of my friends and neighbors start to disappear. I lived displacement. I lived what it meant to live in a community that was treated as if we didn't matter. And I came and went to Columbia Law School to become a civil rights lawyer, to become a racial justice advocate, because for me, it has always been about fighting for our communities, not just to be seen, not just to be said we are heard, but to actually drive the decisions that make change. And so I have already proposed on January 11th, New Deal, New York. And that is a proposal that would spend $10 billion in capital construction, $2 billion of it explicitly on Nycha. But you know what we're going to do with all of that money? Create 100,000 jobs, and we're going to focus those jobs on the communities hard hit by COVID, our communities. And the other thing I proposed, because my godson lives in Soundview houses, I had him come move in with me because unfortunately, not only did it take him too long to get to school, had to travel an hour and a half each way, I also knew what he was dealing with. And so when he lived with me, I knew he was safe. And he lived with me for a lot of years. But here's what I will say to you. We created a participatory justice fund, a gun violence prevention plan, because we heard from our communities it wasn't getting the urgent attention it needed. So $18 million is going to go to communities like yours. You get to decide what gets spent on to make your community safer. That's participatory justice fund. I have more ideas, but I see the red, so I'm going to stop and make sure my colleagues also have an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we're gonna have, the candidate, Ray. I'm sorry, I can't see the names, I'm sorry. Ray McGuire.
It is Ray McGuire.
Yes, Ray for mayor, I see it.
Ray for mayor. Can you see me now?
Yeah, we got you, Ray.
How we doing, Nycha? Listen, my name is Ray McGuire. I am not a politician. I didn't get termed out, and I'm not looking for a promotion. I came up on the other side of the tracks, deep in the neighborhood. I was raised by my single mother and my grandparents. I didn't know my dad. And my mother was a social worker. And based on her sacrifices, I was able to manage through living as she lived from paycheck to paycheck. She's a social worker, and she, along with my grandparents, raised me and my two brothers. And I know what it's like not to have. I grew up across the street from the Howard paper mill, and sometimes we used to have to, there were fumes that were so strong from the paper mill that the only way we could breathe is to open the refrigerator door. I know what it's like to wash tin foil and have small bars of soap, and you put them together to make yourself feel that you got a long bar of soap. What I know is that through her sacrifices, I was able to come to the East Coast and get a great education. I want the same opportunities that I was fortunate to have for every resident of Nycha and for all New Yorkers. What we know is long before the pandemic, you all have been suffering from mismanagement, mistreatment, and missed opportunities. We also know that we need to close all the open tickets. The backlog is there. We need to catch up on deferred maintenance and move forward with all the court order reorganizations. Finally, we know that we're in the midst of this global health and economic crisis, and things have gotten worse. We have to make a change now. One remedy for fixing Nycha is major federal relief. I have the relationships to ensure that we can get the help that we need. Another solution, which is key, is better overall management of our city. That's why I need your support. I'm running for mayor because in this crisis, the city needs leadership that meets the moment. I know the burdens of poverty and discrimination, and I know the transformative power of education and opportunity. That's from my own life. I understand the world of business and budgets from my own career, and I have the vision for bringing jobs and justice to every neighborhood and every Nycha household so our city can recover and heal. I have not made a promise that I have not fulfilled. This is not something that is pie in the sky. I have a track record of having actually done what I said I was going to do. And if I look at what has taken place over the past 20 to 30 years, those who have promised things that they would do, those promises have not yet gotten filled. And Nycha is still suffering. I will make a difference. And the thing that I know about truth is I don't have to remember tomorrow what I told you today, because it's always going to be the same. And so what I commit to you is something that I will fulfill, and I have a track record of having done exactly what I say I'm going to do. So I look forward to representing you. I was just with Rafael Salamanca. I was just with Danny Barber, walking through and experiencing the open tickets. We need to get this done, not false promises.
Mr. Menchaca, you're next. Same question. Thank you.
Hola, buenas noches. I'm Carlos Menchaca, and I am currently a city council member in Brooklyn. And I've been fighting really hard for my community that includes Red Hook East and West. I know what's going on in Nycha. Nycha's falling apart. And we have one plan in this campaign: to fully fund Nycha. That means that we look at $32 billion of deferred maintenance. That's years of neglect that we can actually make a difference in using our capital budget in what I'm calling a Green New Deal for New York City. This is something that we can do as a city of New York because we have the power and the money to be able to bond for the repairs of all the inside of the apartments. And I know, like Nycha in Red Hook and so many other buildings that were damaged by Sandy, that's only taking care of the outside. We have to go inside. I do not support RAD. RAD has, for so many different reasons, really is beginning to remove the promise of public housing. A little bit about me. Why do I care about public housing? Well, I grew up in public housing, single mother, 7 brothers and sisters. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm a proud gay Latino, and I am ready to stand up. I'm probably the youngest member of the candidates here today because I believe in young people. And in my time as council member, and you can look me up, carlos2021.com, and look me up. The young people have been the forefront of how I think about policy when I want to defund NYPD, when I want to remove the jails that got approved by the city of New York with $9.2 billion. Those are the things that we need to do as a city, and I'm ready to do that. I have the heart and courage and the experience. Let's make this happen, Nycha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have our next Scout member, and she will be asking our question. I believe we're gonna cut the time down, guys, due to the fact that went pretty long for the 2 minutes. So instead of 2 minutes, we are now given 90 seconds, and that's due to time constraint. So we're definitely gonna start with our Girl Scout troop leader. Let's go, my love.
Do you believe all public schools should be treated equally? Because I go to a public charter school and we're constantly having to.
I think we missed that question on Zoom.
No. They might not be hearing us either right now.
Okay. I was like, oh my gosh, is
Yeah.
it mine? Okay.
No.
Okay, I can hear you.
Is that everyone should have access to the same opportunity and they should have the same resources. Right now, the way it works within the city is that we fund schools based upon the property taxes in that area, which means that communities that are already underserved are always going to be in a position of getting less. If we want to change that, we have to equally fund schools across the board for every school so that every child has access to the same opportunity. We saw what happened when we don't do that when this pandemic happened. We have 70,000 kids that still don't have technology, and this is 2021. So when I am mayor, we will make sure that we invest in kids. We can't be able to spend $337,000 to invest in prisoners, but we don't want to invest in kids. Every child, when you go to the first grade, you're going to get a piece of technology. When you leave public school and you go to middle school, you're going to get a new piece of technology. When you go to high school, you're going to get a new piece of technology. We are going to ensure that you have the resources that you need to be successful. If we want to see a positive young lady grow up and have hope and purpose, we have to invest in it. And as mayor, you will be a #1 investment for me.
Thank you. Our next person to speak, we're gonna pose that question to Mr. Shaun Donovan, please.
Could you repeat the question? We couldn't all hear it on Zoom when you first read it because the screen went out.
The question is, do you believe all public schools should be treated equally? Because I go to a public charter school and we are constantly having to advocate for space with the current mayor.
So thank you for the question. And I fundamentally believe not only that we should be investing in good schools, and that includes charter schools. So I would make sure that your school had the resources that it needed. And I would go to the state I would go to the federal government and work with my deep relationships with President Biden, with all of the leadership in Congress, and make sure that we got what New York City deserved to invest in every one of our schools. But I believe we need to go farther than that, because it's not just enough to make sure our schools are working, which I would, but it's also critical that we connect schools to jobs that you're going to be able to get in your future that allow you to build a life here of opportunity to stay in New York, to raise a family. That's why I've proposed that every single public school student during high school should get at least one paid internship. And it's why I want to make sure that every single school is located in what I call a 15-minute neighborhood. Well, you ask, what is a 15-minute neighborhood? What it means is that you deserve, every child in this city deserves, within 15 minutes of your front door, to have a great school that you can go to, including your school. But it also means you should be able to walk to public transportation to get wherever you need. You should be able to walk to a library that's open 7 days a week. You should be able to walk to a park so that in a time like this, you can get fresh air. You should have fresh food within 15 minutes of your front door. All of those things should be in every single neighborhood. And that is not just a great school, it's all of the things that you need for a life of opportunity. That's what I would make sure you had as mayor.
Our next speaker will be Ray McGuire.
Thank you for the question. Education is what got me here. From the neighborhood to where I've been able to get an education, all of our children need to make certain, we need to make sure that all of our children have the best education possible. That's why my plan is cradle to career, which means by the time many of our kids get to pre-K, they're behind. I want to start earlier, from 0 to 4, making sure that our children get the proper care of all affordable childcare. Then I want to make certain that beginning at the 3rd grade, for my accountability, I want to make sure that every child in New York City can read. Every child in New York City can read, because between 0 and 3, they're learning to read. After that, they're reading to learn. So I want to make certain that every child finishes 3rd grade with the ability to read. Then I want to make certain that at the beginning of the 6th grade that we expose our children to all kinds of opportunities, including making certain that they get a summer job, so that by the time they graduate, they have the opportunity to pursue the thing that they've been interested in, go to a 2-year or 4-year college. That's cradle to career, cradle to job, and that's my plan. And yes, we ought to make certain that every one of our children, like me, has the same opportunity to get an education. I am committed to that because that's the only thing that I know.
Mr. Eric Adams.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that question. And let me share this with you. If you wore a size 5 shoe and another student wore a size 9 shoe, and the Department of Education gave both of you size 6 shoes, that's equality, but it's not equity. We can't do a one-size-fit-all. I need to find out your needs and make sure that I am allocating the resources based on your needs, not based on one standard. We have some schools in this city where they get the same dollars your school would receive, but they have the ability to raise millions of dollars through their PTAs. We have schools in this city where you don't have Wi-Fi and high-speed broadband because the buildings are older and you need a higher level of technology. So based on the needs of the students is how I'm going to allocate my funding to make sure that we also deal with some of the social issues. If you have a school where the largest number of children are living in poverty, we can't just go based on the school lunch program to make that determination. must take a total view of that child and develop that child's full personhood to ensure they receive the resources they deserve. And lastly, young lady, I want you to think about the babies that come before you. Education does not start when a child is born. It starts when a mother is carrying that baby. Under my plan, every mother for her first child will have a doula. She'll understand the power that the first classroom is in a mother's womb. And she should have the nutrition, the support, and the information to participate in the 80% of brain development that happens in the first 1,000 days of her existence. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you what you need based on your needs, not based on what everyone else is receiving.
Do I mute it?
Next up for the question, we have Ms. Wiley.
Make sure let me know if you have to mute them. Okay, I'm muting them if I see that red. Loose.
It looks like she's experiencing some technical difficulties. We'll come back around to her. But Mr. Carlos Menchaca, can you please answer that question? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question and for the courage to confront something that's very real. You or any child should not have to fight for space in any school. And the reason that we have that as a problem is because we haven't built the number of schools that we need to and the space that is needed in every neighborhood. As a city council member in Sunset Park, we are now building 7 new schools after years of the city not listening to our community. And all we did was build a better relationship with the school construction authority so that they could sit down and listen to young kids like you and parents. That changed everything. We had to fund it and the budget was there. And that's why I think all of us are in agreement that we want to fund more schools. And that's what's going to solve the school crisis and the seats that are necessary so that you have not just a classroom, but a music school, a music room, and a dance studio, and a place to do science. Those are the things that are necessary for the future. And I'm so thankful that you asked this question, because no child, especially now after COVID, and all of you have been experiencing incredible trauma this last year. And I'm so thankful that you're here today engaging, because I know that the virtual world has been so hard on you, and we hear you. And this is why you all need to be the front and center of what we do to make sure that your lives are better, that you catch up on school, and that you stay motivated to come out and change the world. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Ms. Wiley, we're going to come back to you with that question.
Yes. Thank you. And sorry, I am having technical difficulties, but listen, you count. Every last one of our children counts, matters. So yes, you will get what you need. And here's the thing, I think Eric said it well when he talked about it's not one size fits all. It's making sure that every single one of our children gets what our children need. And that means a couple of different things, right? That does mean classrooms. And one of the things we have an opportunity to do right now is understand that we have a whole bunch of space available, and we have to take advantage of that to create also new and different kinds of classrooms, ones that are much more engaging for what you want to learn. Because I know with my own kids, I know with so many other kids in our communities, we're not teaching to what makes us the most competitive we can be as a city and as a nation. And that does include art, that does include science, but it also includes learning in different ways. And we have the opportunity to do that, given this crisis, by taking some of that vacancy to make not just more space, but new kinds of programs. And one other thing I'll say, I don't know if you had broadband, if you had internet in your apartment, but When I worked at City Hall, we made city government do something it had never done before. And we got every apartment in Queensbridge houses free broadband. And I left city government thinking more was going to happen in more public housing because I created a plan. But when I left, it didn't happen. So when I'm mayor, it will.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Our next up will be Ms. Dianne Morales.
Oh, thank you. So I want to speak to your question directly first. Absolutely, when I am mayor, I will make sure that you have access to everything you need so that you can be successful in school. But I also want to talk to you about why it's even necessary for us to have this conversation. It's necessary because for years, for decades, our government and our leadership has divested from our Black and brown communities. They have taken away funding from our schools, from our housing, and from all of the things that we need, people like us need in our communities to thrive. And that is one of the things that I promise you I will take care of. And that is one of the reasons why you have had to go to charter school, why your parents have had to find a better school for you than your neighborhood school, because your neighborhood school wasn't being funded and resourced the way it should be. So I'm going to make sure that that happens. But here's the other thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that in public schools, Black and brown kids feel seen, they feel valued, and they feel like it's a safe place for them to be. Because we also know that for too long, our schools have not been places where our Black and brown kids actually were safe. They have for too long served as a portal to the prison pipeline. So we're going to take care of that and make sure that you're being taught by teachers who look like you, who understand you, and who value you. And so you're going to get the best education experience possible. That's what I promise you I can do for you as mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. We have one more question from one of our youth, and then we're going to go on to our president. So our next youth is up, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions. That first question, okay, I want to make sure everybody gets a fair chance. So I'm going to start back off with, oh wow, this is kind of hard, but we're going to go with Carlos Menchaca. Okay, he'll be the first to answer that question.
So, what am I? Good evening. My name is Christian Dilbert. I am representing HHDT of Union Settlement, and so one of my main concerns as a young adult in New York is just being prepared to survive on my own. I feel like in schools, I would like to learn more about like stuff like investing and like retirement and managing bills and growing my credit and just other financial planning. So what are you gonna do to help us teens learn these things?
Thank you. Thank you, Christian, for your question. What's really interesting about your question is I think you put your answer in the question. What the city of New York needs to do with the next chancellor and the next Department of Education is to build curriculum to address the needs that you just gave us right now. Any and all of us should take what you just said and incorporate it into our plans for education to ensure that you have everything that you need to open a bank account, understand how to balance a checkbook, to be able to invest when you're ready, to be able to go out and pay bills and get credit and be successful. And that's not happening right now. the system that we have right now in the Department of Education is so old, and we're seeing it now as you've all been suffering through the last year of remote learning. And when we look at what's happening in your classrooms, and I talk to teachers and young people, you're all learning curriculum and things that have nothing to do with what you're going to actually be doing out in the real world. And so that is something that I'm committed to do. And the first thing we need to do is place young people like you and everyone that's been asking questions at the front so that we can actually address the needs that you have. And the last thing I want to say is that something I fought for in Sunset Park was a school that is connected to STEAM and STEM in industries that we have right now that are part of the future jobs, so that you not only get to understand how to balance a checkbook and learn how to do investment, but that you're side-by-side companies that are designing the next jobs, and that you can do during high school. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Next, we're gonna have Ms. Joycelyn Taylor, who's our in-person candidate.
Thank you so much. And I think Carlos is correct when he says that you kind of answered the question. The answer was actually in the question, but I want to tell you this. You know, I was taking my nephew, not recently, but a little while ago, I was taking my nephew to Washington, D.C. He said to me, Auntie, how many feet is it from New York to Washington, D.C.? And I went through the process and I told him, well, you got to figure out how many feet are in a mile, then how many miles it is, and then you have to times it by, how many feet by how many miles. And he picked up his phone and he said, Siri, how many feet is it from New York to Washington, D.C.?
That's it.
The way kids learn and the things that you have access to now is so different, but education has not caught up with that. We have a huge opportunity to utilize the time that we spend in school being more individualized, figuring out what it is you want to do, and giving you purpose, giving you the skills that you need to be a whole purposeful human being. And that's what we need to do with the time that we have with you. So when I'm mayor, that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on being more individualized. We're going to focus on the things that you want to try. Give you the opportunity to try so many different things. Because a lot of the times that we're spending now, kids understand that, they're in school and it's hard for them to get excited about things that they may never use in life. We have to understand that. There's some things that we're teaching them that they just will never use. And they, at this point, because of technology, they know that. So we got to make sure that we give you the useful information that you need. And also there's some things that we threw away that you could probably benefit from. Home economics, carpentry, the opportunity to try other things, art, music, all of those things. So I definitely want to make sure, and cursive writing, we need to bring that back because a lot of you don't even know how to sign your name. And that's not a good thing. You want to sign those checks. So, we need to bring all of those things back that are the basic things that you need, like I said, to be a whole purposeful adult. And that's what I'm going to focus on.
I'm just gonna have a reminder. If you see the colored papers, it's green means it's still go time, yellow means half of your time is gone, and red means please stop, your time is up. Our next person is Mr. Ray McGuire.
Thank you for asking the question. Part of the problem we have today is that you don't have people who understand how to manage a balance sheet and how to work a savings account. They don't understand money. You are me. I remember the time when I was in your shoes and didn't understand anything about that. And I was able to go and get an education so that I could learn the skills that you're talking about. I'm the only one here who's actually managed a budget in business for as long as I've managed a budget in business. And I've actually taught the courses that you're talking about so that you can have an understanding of finances, so you can understand how to make money and how to make money work for you. That's what I've done my entire career, making certain that people like you and me understood finances and making certain that a budget like the budget that we have is a budget that we can manage, because I've managed budgets like this for almost 4 decades, almost 36 years. So I understand finance. I understand how to make finance work. And today, the skills that we need to lead this city is someone who understands money and understands how to teach about money. Otherwise, this crisis is going to be much greater than what we're currently experiencing.
Thank you for that. Next person, same question, Mr. Eric Adams, please.
Thank you very much for that. And you know, it's not just engaging in the conversation, it's actually doing it. And I immediately put in place a program as borough president that taught financial literacies in our schools. We partnered with our banks and other institutions. We brought in family members and showed them first-time home buying. It's about developing the full child. And let's be clear, what we are doing now is called schooling, not educating. We have to stop going by a system that has not changed in over 2,000 years. Everything around us has changed. It's not the school building anymore. It's not the summertime being off on the agrarian calendar anymore, where we don't have continuous instruction. It's about opening the entire city and allowing our children to be educated with the full scope of this city, going into the internships, doing what Shaun Donovan talked about by having those bonds at an early age, teaching our children how to go and do some of the programs throughout the city, going to the museums, taking away the sterilized environment of four walls where children sit down and do rote learning. Those skills are no longer going to be needed in the deep into the 21st century. Teaching critical thinking, teaching communication, working in groups. These are the skills of an artificial intelligence, computer learning. And when we teach our children to work in factories and only look for UBIs, then we are preparing them to be failures and not preparing them for the future. And so I applaud you for asking that question.
Thank you for that. Next up, we have Ms. Maya Wiley. Thank you. Same question.
You're muted, Maya.
All right, thank you. One of the most important things we have to do to meet the needs of every last one of our kids, including you, is recognizing how gifted and talented you are. Every last one of our kids are. And you're expressing an interest in something so important that you absolutely should be able to get in school through a couple of different ways that we could do right now, which includes the fact that we create, just like Ms. Taylor said, because I agree with her, we can create more individualized experiences for students so they can explore their interests. We don't do that. And that, in part, is already happening in one school in Queens that allows students to create cohorts by interest. And then the school organizes the supports around education around the interests. So in addition to, yes, having some basic things all our kids learn, it's also how we create in the school the opportunity for students to be heard around what interests they want to explore. And when we were doing this, I co-chaired the School Diversity Advisory Group. We had parents, we had educators, we had students, high school students and middle school students at the table designing some of these things. And one of the things we have to do as government is ensure that that is happening in our schools and that all of our kids get to participate in that, and that the schools design around it. And the last thing I'll just say on this is, in terms of summer jobs, that in communities like yours, we would double the number of summer youth jobs that are currently in the budget.
Thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Ms. Dianne Morales.
Love the way you say that. Thank you so much. So I think this is a really, really great question. Really, the purpose of education is supposed to be to help young people like you develop the critical thinking skills and the tools that you need to be able to go out into the world and be successful, whatever you choose to do. So I have already talked about, I think we need to develop curriculum around 3 core areas: financial literacy, digital and technological literacy, and civic and democratic literacy. And throughout your schooling, you should be given the tools under those umbrellas that will enable you to make informed decisions and navigate in this world. But the other thing that we need to do is to actually create a K through 16 pipeline with CUNY, where you are using the city as a classroom, where you're being exposed to businesses and arts and cultural institutions and all of the careers that are available and accessible to you in this city. And you're being given opportunities to do job shadows, to do internships, and to explore the opportunities that you might want to pursue for your own career, so that you can make meaning and you can make informed choices about your own future, just like middle-class families are able to do for their kids and their opportunities. You should have access to the same thing. And we should be, through our school system, giving you the tools so that you can make those choices on your own. Thank you.
Next up, the final person for that question will be Mr. Shaun Donovan, please.
Thanks so much. And this is such an important issue because in the end, if you don't understand money and you don't understand financial literacy, you're never going to be able to reach opportunity. And look, President Obama asked me to lead the $4.5 trillion federal budget, and I know that money talks. And so there are 3 things I specifically want to suggest we do here if I were mayor. First, we need to make sure that every time a decision is made about your school and your education, you have a say in it. And how do you do that? Well, we have something in this city called community education councils, but right now they don't have any power over the budgets of schools. I want to change that. In my education plan, I would actually give the power to community education councils to do what we call participatory budgeting. So if you, your parents, your friends, their families decide you want more financial education, you would be able to put money towards that in your school. So that's one thing. Second, we also need more schools that specialize in different things in this city. You should be able to go to a high school for accounting or for other financial interests that you have. My son is a musician. Music changed his life. And when he found music in school, it set him on a totally different path. We should have more arts-based schools, more science-based schools. And the third thing is there's nothing to teach you financial literacy like having a paycheck. That's why I'm promising that every single high school student in New York City, in our public schools and our charter schools, would be able to get access to at least one paid internship by the time they graduate.
Thank you so much. Yes, we really appreciate you guys, and thank you guys for coming out to ask us candidates your questions. It's very important that you guys be heard, and we wanted to make sure that you guys had this opportunity. Next up, we have one of our presidents. Now, this president I'm about to introduce, he's a comrade of mine, and he came here all the way from South Jamaica, Queens. He is the resident council president of South Jamaica Housing. He's also someone of the Occupied Nycha, who just made media recently, where we were part of the people that were in the RNC video. So that's who we are, but we have been vindicated, and we proved that she lied. So I'd like to represent Mr. Manny Martinez from South Jamaica Housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. And so is Rock. Thank you, sir. Good evening, candidates. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate this time that you're taking to answer these questions. My name is Manny Martinez. I'm the resident council president for South Jamaican Houses. My question is, the word preservation, when it comes in regards to Nycha, is a little deceiving. Truthfully, what it means is elimination. Now, currently the plan is to eliminate 62,000 units under Shaun Donovan's RAD program, and then the other 110,000 units under the Blueprint for Change, all which will increase the rent burden population in underserved communities such as ours, which are traditionally redlined. My question to you is, do you continue this strategy? Do you feel that continuing this strategy is the best way to preserve, so-called preserve public housing? Or if not, how would you 100% preserve Section 9 and the rights of Section 9 for the families who live in public housing?
Did everybody hear Mr. Martinez's questions before we continue? We did? Okay, I'm gonna start off. Woo, that's a good one. I love that. Ms. Joycelyn Taylor, we're gonna ask you to take that question, please.
That is an excellent question. And let me just be clear. I'm not for RAD and I'm not for the Blueprint. And that is primarily because the tenants are not part and they live there. And at what point are we going to start listening to the tenants? You know, I moved out of Nycha about 20 something years ago. Nycha was disinvested in 20 something years ago. So the answer to that disinvestment can't be that now I'm going to put you on Section 8. I'm going to put you in a position if you have to recertify everything. I'm going to put you in a position where you're going to have to make sure that you're able to qualify. There are so many unknowns and there's so many issues as it relates to people being put on Section 8. And we have, you know, everyday working people. My dad drove a bus that are living in Nycha. The reward for the city not doing its work should not be more of a burden put on the tenant. So my goal is to create ownership opportunities for the tenants. Because when you own something, if you have a 30-year mortgage, your rent isn't going up every year. You're not paying rent based upon, you know, how much who lives in your apartment. And that's one thing you have to understand that I think is a disservice to Nycha tenants. Because somebody else lives in an apartment in Bed-Stuy. If that apartment is $1,000, they pay $1,000. They get a better job, they pay $1,000. They get married and they have someone else living there, they pay $1,000. Nycha residents, no matter how hard you work, the city gets 30 cents on the dollar. So you'll never be in a position to be able to excel and lift yourself up. So I want to reinvest in Nycha. We're going to do away with these tax abatements because we can't be giving abatements to people when we can't afford it. We could be using that money to invest in Nycha. Why are we giving them abatements when we don't need the money? We're going to take that money, we're going to reinvest it in Nycha. We're going to create ownership opportunities for those tenants who want it and who are eligible. And we're going to create true wealth and legacy for the Nycha residents.
For that question, we will have Mr. Ray McGuire.
Thank you. It's a great question. Listen, I was recently talking to Danny Barber and some of the other presidents, and what is very clear is that the RAD program has gotten mixed reviews, as has Blueprint. It is working for all too few, and for the many, it's not working. And so we need to make certain that we review and get the input from the people who are on the ground. And what we know as we've transitioned to this program, that we still have far too many open tickets. And those open tickets are not going to get resolved by RAD. They're not going to get resolved by Blueprint. So we need to come up with a system that includes the presidents, that gives the input, and make certain that they have the choice. It's their homes. Their homes are being impacted pretty significantly by mismanagement and mistreatment and a bureaucracy that does not allow them to get the basic needs that they have to make certain that the water works, that the heat works. You have too many systems where the boilers go down every year, and every year you get the same response. RAD has not solved that, neither will the Blueprint. So we need to make sure that we include them, and we need to come up with a system that addresses what have been the acute needs. And those needs have been outstanding for 20 to 30 years. Notwithstanding what people have promised, they have not filled the promises, and they're not talking to the people who are living there. They're not talking to the presidents of the organizations, of the housing projects. So we need to make sure that those presidents and those tenants and the people whose homes that we're talking about, that they get input. to give us input on what they think is going to work, because what they've outlined today is not working.
Next up, the next question we have Ms. Maya Wiley.
Thank you. So read my lips. When Maya Wiley is mayor, public housing stays public, period. And what that means is, one, we go to Washington and we go and we have a new administration and we say it's on you and you do what you were supposed to. This is federal housing. But here's the other thing. I am also not waiting for that. That's why in my $10 billion capital construction plan, I have a minimum of $2 billion for Nycha as soon as I take office. And tenant voice, your voice. We will have a governance structure that I will work with you on developing, because you also deserve a voice in saying how you have a voice, what will work for you, because I understand there have been so many promises made to you, and yet you have had them broken time and time again. And it's time that you sit in a seat that gives you a voice and power over your own future. And that's what I will do as mayor.
Next up for the same question, Ms. Dianne Morales.
Thank you. So I am unequivocally opposed to RAD. The idea that the only way poor Black and brown folks can get access to quality anything is by exposing our tenants to eviction risk and providing these tax write-offs and incentives to developers is fundamentally against our community. I don't buy it. It continues to erode the idea of public housing. We have to work. We need leadership that is going to advocate and push to fully fund public housing without requiring any kind of privatization. We also need to make sure that we are democratizing Nycha governance. Nycha should be led by residents. It should be resident controlled. You all should have a voice and leadership, critical leadership in deciding the fate of where you live. So I am not gonna, kowtow to the idea of shifting the subsidy stream from Section 9 to Section 8 while we continue to erode the rights of residents. And what's more, I'm gonna invest in improving the quality of life for residents by prioritizing residents in Section 3 and making sure that the investments that come to Nycha prioritize Nycha residents in employment. And I'm gonna invest in creating a pipeline for Nycha residents to access jobs so that the decisions Nycha residents make about the changes you want are implemented by Nycha residents. My time's up.
Person, same question, Mr. Eric Adams, please.
I believe he just stepped out or has left for the evening.
Yeah, he had a hard stop at 7:20.
Okay, so Carlos, you're up, Mr. Menchaca.
Claro. Hi, everyone. We know that Nycha needs funding. This is why I believe in fully funding Nycha. The blueprint and the trust and RAD, these are all programs that were created by people who do not live in Nycha, do not understand the power of public housing, and are going to create loopholes to remove these apartments, these incredible promises to our Black and brown communities in New York, and create loopholes so that even things like Baez and the loophole that will be created to remove the monitor and the focus of the federal government's promise to bring more funding will be gone. That cannot happen. When I am mayor, we will remove this blueprint. This blueprint has not only concerns that I just laid out, but the fact that the community engagement process is still going forward. You have Fulton houses that are saying no to RAD, and they're saying no to RAD at a time when the city is pushing it in virtual space, where people don't even understand how to connect and bring their voices together in the middle of a pandemic. That is wrong. This is why I do not support RAD or the trust. We need to fully fund Nycha, and we can do that with the capital budget and the power of the capital budget before the state or the federal government come in. And that is my promise. And that is my commitment to you. Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Shaun Donovan.
Thank you. We all know that public housing is the single most precious affordable housing resource we have in this city. And it must remain public and permanently affordable. I believe that, and I am the candidate who has made the single biggest commitment of city dollars, $2 billion each year out of the city capital budget. And that demonstrates a commitment to keep public housing public and to truly preserve it. I also know that Bill de Blasio has tried to push privatization by hiding behind RAD. RAD has been used in other places around the country to keep public housing public, and it has no requirement that private ownership or private management be used. So I would make sure that we have all the resources we need to fix public housing, and I would not privatize any public housing. And I would go further than that, which is to say, this is a huge opportunity for us to not only get the capital that we need, but to put folks to work fixing our public housing, with partnering with our unions, building training programs. And finally, no one in this race has had the experience that I have building home ownership for public housing residents. I started 25 years ago with East Brooklyn congregations and South Bronx churches. We did it then, over 5,000 Nehemiah homes. We can do it again.
Mr. Donovan, how does transitioning it from RAD to Section 9 to Section 8 preserve public housing and keep public housing, as you just stated again? How did you use Section 8 to preserve public housing in other locations in which it eliminated it?
So for 20 years, we have been fighting to get more Section 9 housing, more Section 9 funding. When I worked for President Obama all 8 years, we actually got a bigger investment in Section 9 than at any time in the past 20 years. But here's the problem. Right now, Section 8 is the only source of funding that has the political support and has been growing over the last 20 years. Public housing is the only type of housing that has not been able to benefit from it. So if you really want to fix public housing, if you really want to get the $40 billion that we need to fix it, we have to access the funding that is available. I am not going to wait. I am not prepared to watch for another 20 years while we watch our public housing continue to deteriorate in this city. So we must build a political coalition that brings funding to actual.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Next for the same question, we have Ms. Catherine Garcia. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it.
Yes, I apologize. I had too many Zooms tonight. I apologize. And I want to thank 700 Strong and the East Harlem Democratic Club for having me. And I want to be really direct with you. RAD and the Blueprint actually will help Nycha residents right now. I've been out to Ocean Bay, and I want to correct one thing that Ray said. It does actually close every single work order when you actually move and make that transformation and do that rehabilitation. I've been in those bathrooms. I've been in those elevators. I've been in those kitchens. I've talked to those tenants, and it is maintained. You have exactly the same rights in your RAD lease as you do in your NYCHA lease. Exactly the same. I have seen it. But what I would propose of how we need to have more engagement with NYCHA tenants is they should be part of the selection process for who is part of renovating those developments. I think that's incredibly important. Your voices do need to be heard. You need to be decision makers. And I'll tell you something else about Blueprint. It is exactly how we manage and run our water system. New York City rents the water system to the water board. Still owns it, but it rents it to the water board so that you have the financial ability to bond and get money for the water system. And so they hire DEP. The water board hires DEP to do that work. It's not at all clear to people, but that is how you create a stable funding stream for NYCHA and get repairs done now, not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but now.
If I'm permitted to respond, I think it'd be important, Catherine, to talk to the leadership, the presidents, CCOP, to see what's working and see what's not working. I've gone to see it.
Yeah, no,
Too many open tickets. So there may be some instances where it's working, but I think as the homeowners will tell you, there are many instances where it's not.
No, not in RAD buildings. Not in RAD buildings. That's not true.
Mr. McGuire, you might as well continue because you are up next. You can continue the conversation. That'll be added to your time.
No, thank you. I've sat and talked to the people who are living in the housing, in housing. I've talked to Melrose, been to Jackson, walked around Rafael Salamanca. You talk to the tenants about RAD and get their reaction. You talk to the presidents about RAD and get their reaction. You go through Blueprint and look at Blueprint relative to RAD and look at what's not working. Yes, you have examples of things that are working, but as I said, there are far too many things that are actually not working. So it's nice to pull out an isolated example, but look across the entire system of a few 100,000 and see actually what's working.
Right. I was the interim chair of NYCHA. I've been in all of those buildings. I've talked to Danny. I've sat in CCOP meetings. I've met with tenant leaders. And I'll tell you, the ones who have completed RAD, it is done. There are not that many have finished their renovation.
And as the interim president for 20 years, many things that you've outlined have not gotten fixed. So I don't know what's new.
Manny, that was on. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Thank you. Next up, we have the master by youth. We're trying to get them out at a reasonable hour. So, bear with them as they introduce themselves. And as their leadership here, one of our youth leaders, Ms. Tatiana B, Patty B, she's been working with youth in our community through Union Settlement, who also has provided this safe space. And this is their space that we're using today. So I just want to express that to you. They welcomed us into their space. This is one of the safest spaces for them to be. And especially during these times, they're taking extra precautionary measures for us to be here today. So I just wanted to let you guys know that they took their time out and they're appreciative of you giving them your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Claudia. Thank you so much for reaching out. So we have this one last question. Anna?
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm a part of HADT, and I actually am a resident of Washington Houses. I can speak about you, but my question is, how you guys get NYCHA to fix custodial issues with our residents having to reach out to the media? Statistics shows there are a lot of videos about where the seniors are not having hot water, paint chipping, people not having proper toilets and proper showers working. So how will you guys, as our future mayors, switch that?
That question goes to Mr. Ray McGuire. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the question coming to me. You know, you have to go directly to the source. There's too much bureaucracy. I would start with the presidents. I would also make certain that I got the local businesses involved, that we get the proper services to the community. Today, as I've said from the start, there's a lot of people talking about a lot of programs and a lot of things they would do. And I look at the results of that, and you got still a lot of open tickets. So we need to change the way we approach this. Our homeowners are suffering. And so I would make sure that I created a strong co-op with the existing presidents of the different communities, get them together and make sure that we fund them so they can go in and do a monitoring of where the systems are, what's working and what's not working, and make sure that they got the resources to clear the open tickets. It shouldn't be that I got an open ticket in the bathroom and my kitchen lights don't work. And so I can't get the kitchen lights to work until I close the ticket in the bathroom. We need to have somebody to address this directly. And I think that the power resides in the people who are the presidents of these existing homes, and have them work with us, sit at the table with us to make sure we get the appropriate funding so they can go in and help us make sure that we fix the outstanding issues which have remained outstanding for far too long.
Thank you so much. Next to the same question is Wiley.
Thank you. Look, you're right. And what has to happen right now is exactly what I've already proposed, which is, as mayor, I have the power to raise the capital construction budget, and I've got $2 billion already for Nycha. Tenants sitting at the table saying what the priorities are and what gets solved, so that it is not just some bureaucrats sitting off in some other office saying what that is. So that's also about creating a process, a structure where tenants have voice. And that is going to be critical to making sure that exactly what you're saying doesn't keep happening. But that's not the only thing. That's just day one, because it is important to make sure that we're getting the investments we should be getting. That includes going to Albany and making sure we get Invest New York, which is our dollars, more revenue into the city. It does mean going to the federal government and saying, look, federal government has denied funding for Nycha for 30 years. That's got to change. And we have a different administration in Washington, but I won't wait, because as I said, power resides in the mayor to do capital construction now. And I would do that on day one. And you would have a say in what gets fixed first, second, and third. Plus, in making sure that we have workforce development, that it is Nycha residents, that we are doing local hiring to get it done, so that we're also getting jobs to residents while we're solving the problems.
Next, our in-person is Joycelyn Taylor, who's in here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, I had an opportunity to meet Monica Morales, and one of the things I said to her is that I want to put her out of business, because she, you know, we utilize her way too much. And we all know what the issues are, right? But as someone who's been in construction, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to actually fix it. We're going to start from the top to the bottom and then in and out, because that's what you do when you do construction. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to assess the immediate risks. We're going to start with our MEPs, which are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. We're going to make sure that those systems in the elevators are fixed first, because those are the systems that impact the majority of the tenants in the building. Then, if you've been in Nycha before, you know that you almost step back in time. If you've been in Nycha, you know you almost step back in time. So we're not talking about situations where we can even do repairs at this point. I want us to have new bathrooms, new kitchens. I want us to deal with these lead issues. Those are the things that I'm going to do, because Nycha residents need to be made whole. We talk about getting the funds from the capital budget and everything like that. Yes, we will invest. Everything I do as mayor is going to be people first, because we can't have nice, shiny buildings and then have people and residents that are living in buildings without heat and hot water. Those are basic rights. So I have a plan. I'm ready for us to work in a way that makes sense, that's streamlined and efficient, and let's just get it done. We created all of this. We can fix it. It just takes somebody with the right willpower desire and the moral intention to get it done.
Thank you. I already said that we need to fully fund Nycha, but that's not going to be enough to get to the repairs fast enough. One way that I want to recommend, and this is what I'm learning just by being in Nycha organizing with residents, is that this is a problem of also managing all the trades that are connected to the things that need to happen in a room. And so the carpenter's not talking to the metal person, not talking to the sheetrock person, to the plaster team. They're not talking to each other, and they're disjointed. There needs to be a conversation with our unions. That's one of the big pieces. The second component is the fact that this is so centralized that a development like Red Hook has to go somewhere else to get resources for what they need. Red Hook, and as this is an example, because this is in my district, should have its own team to be able to make the decisions for Red Hook. All development should make that happen. And so that'll help create a better accountability and a sense of resources to the things that are needed immediately to address issues. That will allow for maintenance folks to be able to see what's happening if the door is broken. And we know that the doors are broken often, that they get fixed quickly. And so we need more money. We need to talk to the trades, our unions, and create a system that can really be on top of one development at a time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Next up, we're going to keep it in the family of Ms. Dianne Morales.
I love it. I love it. So let me just, I want to answer that question. You know, I spent the last decade working in Nycha facilities. I worked at Murphy, I worked at Soundview, I worked at Sotomayor. And so I had sort of firsthand experience with some of the challenges in the facilities that you're talking about, and some of the outstanding tickets and the need to, you know, just the quality overall. So I think the first thing that we need is a fierce leader who is unafraid to advocate for what Nycha residents deserve. And that would be me, because I've been doing it my entire career. But then the other thing I think we need to do is to move towards a model that really gives the power and puts the power in the hands of Nycha residents. And so I would also move to change the board so that it's majority, if not fully, Nycha residents. And I would also work to create a jobs program for Nycha residents so that you all are not just getting jobs, but also able to be responsible and play an active role in all of the repairs that are necessary in Nycha. So it takes investment and it's fierce advocate to make sure that we're getting those investments at the city, state, and federal level. And then it takes empowerment of the Nycha residents to determine what they need, to prioritize their needs, and to be given the resources and tools to actually get that done. And that's what I would do.
Up next, we have Mr. Shaun Donovan.
Thank you. So let's be clear about what the problem is here, right? You all know it. When you put in a ticket, there are a dozen different people all the way to 250 Broadway that have to sign off on getting that repair. So what started as a leak in your shower becomes mold that causes you asthma, that becomes a leaky ceiling and maybe even a collapsed ceiling downstairs. The problem is we need a system where one person at your development with the money that they need can get it fixed and can get it fixed quickly. So going to truly project-based management, having the responsibility with somebody that you can walk to their office, look them in the eyes, say, here's the problem, and know that when they tell you, I can fix that they mean it, right? The other thing is we got to bring this whole system into the 21st century. Why shouldn't you be able to use your phone, take a picture of it, and send it directly to the team at your development who can fix it? We are using a 20th century system, maybe even 19th century, to fix problems in the 21st century. And we have to bring Nycha and the management system into the 21st century. Those are the things that would make a difference in actually getting things fixed before they become asthma, before they become mold, before they become things that start to destroy your health, which is completely unacceptable and unfortunately has been the reality you've lived with every single day.
Next up, we have Catherine Garcia.
Yes, the amount of open work orders is a travesty. And it does really come from the fact that there isn't strong management at development that has the resources to effectively get it done. Because it isn't just that the trades don't speak to each other, that actually is management's job to organize the work. That is what happens when, you got to fix a water main. You don't just bring the folks who can fix one part of it. You got to fix the folks who can actually put the street back together too. And this means we need more training of the property managers, of the maintenance supervisors, but it also is about investment in ensuring that we have development-based budgeting. And this is one of the reasons why it is so important to think about how we move forward in the future, because it is going to be critical to make a difference faster rather than later for the NYCHA tenants to ensure that they are getting their leaks done, that when they have a rat problem, it's like house on fire. We got to fix that right now. And that has been an ongoing challenge. It is a management challenge. It can be repaired. And they do have actually what everybody else in the real estate uses in terms of a work order system. It's the same thing that all the fancy guys use, except that they don't use it. So it's not just about putting technology in, it's about how do you implement it and make it effective for the people on the front line. So I am committed to reducing the hundreds of thousands of work orders that are shameful that we have allowed to fester for so many years.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tati, and you guys for coming out, and I appreciate you coming. Let's give them a round of applause, y'all. That's our group. That's right. That's our future right there. So our next president we had coming all the way from the Bronx, from Adams Houses, another Occupy NYCHA, Mr. Ronald.
Good evening, peace and grace to all of you potential candidates. I just want to say that we're very grateful and thankful for the one that has shown up, and the rest of you that are living comfortably in your households. Next time you need to figure out a way to get here, because if you want votes from people, you need to be present. So I'm really thankful Ms. Taylor is here. So thank you very much, Ms. Taylor, for coming. My name is Ronald Topping. I'm from Adams Houses in the South Bronx. I'm in District 17. I'm also president of the development. I'm also a part of the South Bronx District Council Presidents, along with a graduate from HBCU, and I'm also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. So I have two things that I'm really concerned about in our areas. Number one, we do not accept the blueprint. We reject that. Most of your tenant leaders reject the blueprint. It's not working. It's not going to work, not here in the Northwest of America, New York, the largest city being that in public housing. One of the reasons is not resident driven. So that's why it's not going to work. They don't have an idea in the blueprint of where they're going to put people if they relocate them. Somebody needs to be writing a check. Okay, this is what needs to happen if you're going to tear down stuff and try to move people. They'll work in small cities, but not here. So my question to you all candidates, and I need you to really pay close attention to this question. My question is, if you become elected here in New York City, will you be able to help us launch a forensic audit on what we already have? We're too much asking about what we need, but we need to know what we have so we can begin there.
And if so, are you going to take that step to help us find that? One of the things that we have in our communities with our kids is we don't have enough tools and implements for them to do virtual school learning. Where is that help for our kids to get that? This is nonsense. Our kids are going to be behind. Someone should be working on getting those kind of things to help our kids. We need to start sending them to these schools, augment their education to an academic level of proficiency, have them go to these colleges so that they can gain wealth. And not only that, we need to find ways to get them in Penn State rather than sending them to the penitentiary state. Thank you. Now, we got something heavy there. I want to hear some answers.
Wow, okay. We're gonna start that off with Mr. Shaun Donovan. Thank you.
So you have my commitment that I would work with you on that forensic audit and get to the bottom of what has happened, the conditions in every single unit, so that we could truly fix Nycha and make it the housing you deserve. I want to go specifically to your question, though, about how we make sure that we are building education for every kid growing up in Nycha. It's through my equity bonds plan. As I said before, I'm proposing, building on what Cory Booker has proposed in the United States Senate, that every child born in this city should get $1,000 in an account. And every year they should get up to $2,000 deposited until they graduate high school. That would mean a kid born in poverty in the city would have almost $50,000 to be able to pay for college, to start a business, to buy a home. Because you know that wealth is the single biggest thing that separates white and black and brown families in this city from anything else. I learned that from Bishop Johnny Ray Youngblood 25 years ago when we built the Nehemiah homes. We must build a pathway to prosperity and wealth in the city for every child, every New Yorker.
Next up, we have Catherine Garcia.
Thank you for that question. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to start with the education one first, because I think it's absolutely critical that we be worried not only about children's educational attainment in this past year, but also their mental health going forward. And I have put together a plan that goes from the beginning of life, the 0 to 3, all the way through to ensure that there are opportunities out of CUNY, but also out of our trade schools. I think that that's absolutely critically important. And I am happy to look and do a forensic audit. I think that government has to be transparent, but I'll tell you this, it is highly, highly likely that when you do that forensic audit, you will see that NYCHA has been shorted since the Reagan administration on operating money and capital money going back to the 80s. And that it's that lack of investment. So it wasn't like things fell apart right away, but are we surprised when we didn't put oil in the car for the last 30 plus years that the engine blew up and now we're in crisis at NYCHA? And so you have been shorted by the federal government over decades, but I would always open books. You should be at the table. You should look and see at everything that we have, because at the end of the day, you're the client, you're the customer, and you need to make sure you're getting the service you need. I'm going to have to jump because I've got another Zoom that I have to get to, but I really appreciate One NYCHA and 700 Strong, and I'm very happy that I got to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Dianne Morales.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks so much for the question. I really appreciate it. So absolutely, I would work with NYCHA residents to do whatever audits we need to do to ensure that we are starting with the strength, from a strength-based perspective, building on the assets of the community so that we can grow from there, and we can do that together. But I really want to get to your question about the education piece, right? No one wants to talk about it. We don't talk about this until it's too late. We can't fix this problem until we confront it. And the bottom line is that our education system is actually, I believe, functioning exactly the way it was supposed to be. It has not been structured so that our children, our Black and brown children, actually have access to the real opportunities that they need to have access to in order to break the school to prison pipeline. And so we need to actually be willing and have the courage to address the structural and systemic issues embedded in our schools so that our children are in fact going into a place where they feel welcomed, where they feel valued, where they feel reflected in what they're learning and in who they're being taught by, where they see themselves reflected in their teachers, and also where they feel respected and the experiences and the history of Black and brown communities is being validated, is being reflected, and is being built upon so that we can move in a whole different direction. That also includes changing the curriculum so that our students are being reflected in that as well. That is one of the things so that we can begin to do, in addition to needing to remove police from our schools. And my time is up, so I'm going to stop there, but I'm happy to talk about this more.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Ray McGuire.
Thank you. First of all, shout out to the HBCUs and how you have been able to accomplish all that you've been able to accomplish through education. We want the same thing. We want the same opportunity that you and I had for those kids in that room. And that's what I'm committed to. So what will I do? One, with respect to the audit, I'm going to put CCOP to work. I'm going to give them a scorecard. And within 45 days, I want them to come back having done a forensic analysis of the condition in every home in Nycha. So there's going to be a project for them. I want to report back to me personally as the mayor. That's number one. Number two, we got a crisis now. Many of our kids don't have access to broadband. They don't have access to tablets. I will make certain that each of our kids have access to both, because today they don't have that, and today they're falling behind. Number three, because we have a COVID crisis, I would make certain that the kids who have not had access to the appropriate learning, that we go through a summer boot camp, that we get a summer boot camp so that we can get these kids caught up, because now they're far behind. And unless we have something like that, they're not going to catch up. Number four, I would make sure that our kids have summer jobs. Each of them needs to have a summer job. I had a summer job. I dug footers. I laid tile. I changed bedpans. I DC'd IVs. I made boxes in the basement of a dress shop. But you know what? I had dignity, and it kept me out of trouble. And number five, I'm going to make sure that my cradle to career, making sure that our kids get educated, and making sure that by the end of the third grade, every child in New York City can read. That's the commitment, and that's my plan.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Carlos Menchaca.
Thank you. The audit, absolutely. The audits are important, and I think you're getting a lot of support for the audits. What the audits are going to tell us are what we have, but what we need is massive. We have a $32 billion deficit, and I go back to that number that the city has to be able to commit, and it has to move first, because the state and the federal government are not going to take the city seriously about our commitment to public housing unless we make that move first. And I think that what I want to say beyond on our educational commitments, what I think some of the candidates already talked about this, the fact that our schools are prison, our pipelines to prison, not only has impacted our current youth, this is a generational impact. This is something that everyone talks about, whether they're a child in school right now or out of the system. And so not only do we have to remove our police, we have to defund our police and our budgets so that we're not overpaying for bloated budget lines like the lawsuits that we pay for, protecting officers that are criminals essentially, but we're also ensuring that we bring more justice to the communities that have been impacted by COVID. And that is going to be central to my administration to ensure that we bring the resources necessary to the folks that have suffered the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joycelyn Taylor. Ms. Taylor, please.
Thank you so much. And that's a great question. As it relates to the audit, we definitely need to do the forensic audit because we can't fix things if we don't know what has gone wrong. I mean, we already know as it relates to the system with the tickets and the way this Nycha operates, it doesn't work. Back in the days when, you know, there were a bunch of white people living in Nycha, they were proactive about getting stuff done. You didn't have to put a ticket in. They came every year to your apartment. So we got to look at what we're doing now because we need to fix it. And on a parallel track, though, I want to make sure that we're still getting those repairs done. Because I'm a doer and I want to see some results. You know, as it relates to education, education is very significant and important. I was able to obtain my master's degree from LIU, and that helped me to be able to start my own business, to create something from nothing. So we have to ensure that the kids going forward have that same level of opportunity. And we know that their lives will be changed with a decent education, with access and opportunity to education, even through the college level. But we have to be honest about this. People are making money off of the school to prison pipeline. We have to be honest about that. People are making money off of the mistakes of our children. And until we're honest about that, and we stand up and say that that is no longer acceptable, we will not see change. And when I am mayor, we are not going to invest in prisons. We're not going to invest $11 billion to build 2,500 new jail cells, which is $4.4 million per cell, by the way, when we could be investing that money in education. We're not going to spend $337,000 a year on keeping someone in Rikers. We're going to make sure that we have those people who are in Rikers have opportunities to come out and do some work when they're done. So when I'm mayor, that's my goal. We're going to make sure everybody is able to live a whole purposeful life. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Wiley, I know you have something fantastic for us. You're on. Wiley.
Oh, thank you. So I apologize, I could not hear. So first of all, thank you, one of the Divine Nine. Also, let me just say that we are going to invest in Nycha, keeping public housing public. I have a $10 billion proposal already right now on capital construction focused on communities hard hit by COVID. That's communities of color. $2 billion already earmarked for Nycha. That can start day one because I don't need permission from Albany or the federal government to do that. And I will do that giving a governance role to Nycha tenants. So yes, on your forensic audit, and yes, that you get a say in exactly what that money should go to solve. But the other thing I've done, which is also part of what you're raising, in the other parts of that capital construction budget, one, we're creating 100,000 new jobs. And in that, we will have local hiring targets. That does mean women and minority-owned businesses. It means folks like Nycha residents, and we understand Section 3 and what it means. And so we will get Section 3 adhered to. But the other part of it, and this is a separate proposal, this is in addition to that $10 billion capital construction, which will solve community problems, I have a gun violence prevention plan. And in that plan, that includes one, making sure that we have a participatory justice fund where communities have a voice in what gets funded that solve community problems. That's giving Nycha residents a participating in the community a voice in what they need. In addition, it will include things like trauma counseling in school. And I see my red, I will stop there. I have said more. I will follow up with you and share more answers to your questions. Thank you.
Wow, I just want to say that this is a wonderful thing, and thank you guys again. Unfortunately, you couldn't be in person, but just thank you for taking the time out to answer these questions, knowing that we have so many issues going on in Nycha. Our next president coming up, she's all the way from the west side, she needs no introduction, Ms. Carmen Quinones from Douglas House.
Okay, hi, my name is Carmen Quinones, and I am the president of Douglas Houses and the CEO of Occupy Nycha. My Occupy Nycha is here in the room. Claudia, Mark, Manny, and of course, Ronald. We have like 10 people on the Occupy Nycha. You know how many residents that is? We running things. We are trying to tell everyone that resident management is the only way to go. There is no other way that we can go but resident management. Because at this point with RAD, you can talk about education. You can talk about everything. You can talk about, especially the criminal justice system, where they're killing our people with these vaccines and nobody seems to care. But my thing is, we all need to look at what is happening inside of New York City Housing Authority. We need to clean it from the ground up, starting with the mayor. I don't have no love for the mayor. I have no love for Bill. I know him for years, and I'm so surprised at him. He has really disappointed me. I've been in this business 35 years. I got 19 grandchildren and 12 great-grand. I'm tired of being tired. I came to ask you a question, but I came to also school you that we ain't taking it no more. We tired. We tired. We are doing everybody's job. We don't get a dime for it. But we get marginalized, we get criticized, all of that. Even with the RNC. The Democratic Party should have made sure that public housing was on the national stage. And we wouldn't have to try to cross lines to get some help. And look what they did to us. They just demonized us. Enough is enough. I'm tired. I'm mobilized. I ain't playing. The next mayor, all I want to hear is, what are you going to do to make sure we own our homes, we get that done? I don't want to hear about red, no pack, no nothing. I've been here 35 years. Know a lot of y'all too well. Know all these elected officials too well. I'm tired. And they're tired too. We got young blood now. We got young people running things. And they know what they're doing, yo. You better, we ain't playing. The next mayor, all I want to hear is call it Occupy Nycha. Make a meeting with Occupy Nycha. It's over 30,000 residents. You better call me, because this is not A. And I'm running for city council too, I want you to know that. I'm running. So I think you'll want to talk to me. I really do. You want to talk to Claudia. You want to talk to Manny. You want to talk to Ronald Toppin, okay? One of our best allies that was in Occupy Nycha. Roxanne Reed just died. Hit us hard. Nobody reached out to us. Nobody said nothing. And she gave her life for her neighbor, for her neighborhood. Ain't nobody reached out to us. We cried together. And I'm sorry, man. That's probably they left me last, because I'm just a trick. I'm tired. And we ain't taking it no more. And I don't care what we have to do to get it done. If you want to be mayor, meet with us.
I guess that wasn't a question. That was just, you know, Mama Carmen in her own way, you know, letting it out. We have a lot of frustration, a lot of things going on. And again, we've come to an end, and we have one more person that we're gonna allow to ask a question. My brother and comrade and now father, Mr. Kelmy Rodriguez.
Right. Thank you. My name is Father Kelmy Rodriguez. I'm the Manhattan president for 700 Strong and 700 Strong Voices. Thank you all for being here. And I know that during this troubling climate, there's so many things going on, a lot of hustle and bustle. I just want to ask you one question. What would you say if someone was to present a plan on your desk to fix New York City public housing? A plan that will provide jobs for the residents, to teach them self-sufficiency, to give them opportunity, to curb recidivism. 18 months it would take to fix a borough. What would you say if we have a plan? Would you be acceptable to others hearing it? The question is, there is a plan, 18 months. We could put Nycha residents to work, literally to work on their own developments. And the reason why we want them to work on the developments, so they can get a sense of pride, a sense of ownership. If you built that wall right there, you'd be damned if I urinated. You'd be damned if I put a hole in it. Because it was your heartache, your sweat, your tears that went to put that wall there. So now the question is, we have a plan, 18 months per borough, putting Nycha residents to work. They learn to be self-sufficient, sense of pride, we cut down recidivism, and guess best of all, we give them prevailing wages.
A question again, would you be open to this suggestion that we have? I know what they're talking about and I'm kind of excited, but I just want them to relay that to you. But we're going to start this off with Ms. Catherine Garcia. She laughed. Okay, so I see her smiling, Ms. Wiley. We can start with you, Ms. Maya.
Look, I am smiling because I am running for mayor because I don't come from a political machine. I come from a community. And that means I don't pretend that I even have all the answers. It's what I wanted in a mayor, is someone who doesn't have all the answers. And every single policy I put forward has been in conversation with folks impacted directly by the problems we're trying to solve. So I say to you, you just made my night. So I would love to see the plan and the policy, but it's also why I said that central and core to what I have in my plan is that we create a Nycha governance structure, because my principle is that we make sure that you have a voice and a say in what solves your problems. So I welcome it, and we will follow up so that we can have a meeting.
Mr. Carlos Menchaca, how do you feel about that?
I think Carlos also had to drop off.
Well, Dianne.
Well, Ms. Morales, you're up.
Great. So, you know, I don't know if you missed it, but my entire campaign is based on centering and elevating and following the lead of community. I am not a savior. I am not presenting myself as the one that has the answers. I am actually saying that I believe that those who are closest to the problems and the challenges are closest to the solutions, that you all know what you want, what you need, and how to get there. And so what I am committing to is not just that I will review your plan, but I'm also committing to the idea that under my administration as mayor of New York, Nycha residents will be in charge of Nycha. You all will be the ones who will make the decisions about what gets done and how you want it to get done. You will be the Nycha board. You will be the ones in control. That is what I am committing to. And I am also committing to doing everything in my power to make sure that the things that you want done get the resources to be done. Because I understand what it is like to feel like you are not being heard, you are not being valued. And my commitment, my entire campaign is based on centering the lives of Black and Brown communities in New York City, the very people that have made it possible for us to survive this pandemic. I want to say one other thing in response to the elder who spoke before you. I see you and I hear your pain and I feel your pain, and I recognize that Nycha residents experienced a fatality rate in response to COVID of 19% compared to the 8% citywide. I know that you all were vulnerable and you all put your lives on the line, and I will not forget that, and I will not leave Nycha residents behind.
Next up, we have Ms. Joycelyn Taylor.
Yeah, definitely. I want the plan. You need a plan. Where's the plan? Listen, I am in our Nycha community so much, and I know that the people in Nycha know their issues and they know how to fix it. They are committed. They're doing stuff for themselves that the city should be doing. So I know if you have a plan, and I know that it involves the commitment from Nycha residents, it's a plan that we need to look at, and it's a plan that we need to make sure we find a way to implement it. I only hope that the plan includes some type of ownership opportunities for residents, because we can't have residents put back in the same position. When I leave as mayor, I'm not even talking about when I am mayor, but when I leave as mayor, I want to leave you better than I found you. And let me just say this, I want to commit that not only will you have a seat at the table, there will be senior people in my administration that will be from Nycha. Because you know your challenges, and they're going to be there to make sure that they hold me accountable. And then make sure that I'm aware of the situations that are going on so we can solve problems. Because we don't create change in silence. So it's time for your voices to be heard. Please know that I'm committed to it.
Thank you, thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Ray McGuire.
Thank you. Let me respond directly. First of all, let me be clear. I am not a politician. I've not served in any administration that has committed certain promises to you that have clearly gone unfulfilled. What I am is a person who has been effective and successful at leading businesses. And today, given the crisis that we have, all the things that you've talked about, unless we put this city back to work, unless we get Nycha residents jobs, we're going to have a real tough time. The crisis, we've only seen the beginning of it. So I'm committed to making sure that we put people back to work, especially Nycha residents. The other thing that I will tell you is if you look at my track record, a track record as being inclusive, which means the only way that you survive for as long as I've survived looking like me, coming from the neighborhood that I came from, and I am you, is to make certain that you get the best ideas. So the plan that you've referenced, I welcome a view of that plan. And I already committed to what I would do with the audit. And I already committed to making certain that we put the CCOP to work to make certain we got the best ideas. And if those ideas are included in that plan, then I'm open to see that plan. And even if you got some ideas that are not so great and very creative, I want to see the plan. I want you to make certain, and I want to make certain that you know that you will have a voice at the table, which is clearly not what has happened under any of these other administrations. Talking loud, saying nothing. So I am here to tell you, based on my track record of having executed, this is about having a plan and executing on that plan. And I'm going to make sure that you're included. So I will kindly ask for it to be excused here. I thank you so much for hosting us. There is no topic that's more important than what you've done. So thank you.
Last but not least, Mr. Shaun Donovan.
Thank you. And let me be very brief here because you all are on your way back to your families. You've spent a lot of your time and effort to make this tonight. I want to be very clear. This plan sounds a lot like the plan I put together, the most aggressive plan, the most money of any candidate, city money toward Nycha, the biggest, boldest plan to put the New York City Job Corps together with Nycha residents fixing Nycha. So I want your plan. Here is my email, Shaun@shaunfornyc.com. Send it to me. Let's talk.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of you here tonight. I just want to say this in closing. Tonight, we have only touched on the topics that plague us as everyday citizens that are living harsh realities. I encourage all of the candidates to go home and think about what you have heard and learned here today. I want you to ask yourself, is my plan inclusive of the least represented? Am I ready to accept the narrative of keeping public housing public? Am I dedicated to accountability, public service, and economic growth by investing in us, the Nycha families that depend on their communities for the survival? Are my plans to better the city realistic and true to what the people want and need and what they deserve? And I want my viewers today, we have had an opportunity to hear each candidate share their views and policy changes. We are tasked with making a decision on who will be the one to represent us. As we digest what was said here tonight, one thing is clearer now more than ever. We need better Democrats. We need better representation. And every vote will count. So I implore you, continue to research, gather your information, attend forums and town halls, ask your questions, share this information. We ask voters are tasked with holding electeds accountable. Know the policies and how it will directly affect your community. Our disparities in our communities have been here far longer than COVID. A person of integrity, vision, ingenuity, and perseverance is the person that is at the top of our list when we're choosing. This is something we can all get behind during these times. So I want to thank you guys. And with that in mind, and the people who have brought this here to you today, so let's be clear on that. This was put together by locally. We had some Democratic clubs, but I also want to make sure that you understand this happened because of 700 Strong, Claudia Perez, Occupy Nycha, and One Nycha. And I'm going to explain to you why we were consistent on having this One Nycha. One Nycha is a show that has been out for over the last year that covers just Nycha topics. Mr. Rock over here is one of the hosts of the show. Tonight was my debut as one of the hosts of the show, a new co-host to the show. So I implore and ask all of you, if you want to continue this conversation with universally in all 5 boroughs with all of the Nycha residents and families, come to the show. We're asking you to come and express this because we know that we are the city. We are the community. We are one Nycha. And that's what I have to tell you. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
My lord, great job.
No,
Great job.
me and Rock have to do better.
No, you guys, listen, I'm here. Whenever you go.
Good job, Jeff.
We're gonna be working together.
No problem.
Oh,
What?